So AI, it's completely transforming our world, right? From discovering new medicines to creating just incredible art. The potential is massive. But, and this is a big but, behind all that power, there are these hidden complexities, these risks that we really need to get our heads around. And to show you just how subtle those risks can be, let's kick things off with a little puzzle.
Okay, have a look at these three statements. On the surface, they seem totally unrelated, don't they? I mean, one's about space, another is a historical fact about a telescope, and, well, one's about me. So, what's the connection? What's the common thread here? You ready for this? The answer is, they're all completely, totally false. Yep. Every single one. And just for the record, no, I have never worked for an airline. Each one of these is what we call an AI hallucination. It's this plausible-sounding nonsense that a large language model just makes up. The real distance to the moon, it's about 384,000 kilometers, not 54 million. And that first exoplanet picture, that was taken way back in 2004. And this, right here, is the perfect way to start talking about something super important: AI ethics. So you can see how these hallucinations are a huge problem. But honestly, they're just one piece of a puzzle. The thing is, when AI systems get it wrong, the consequences can be way more serious than just bombing a trivia question. Sometimes they can take our own hidden biases and just crank them up to 11. Let's look at a classic example from back in 2014. Amazon decided to build an AI tool to make their hiring process faster. Sounds like a good idea, right? But here's the catch. It was trained on years and years of their old hiring data, which, it turns out, was super male-dominated. So what did the AI do? It learned that bias. It started penalizing resumes that had words like women's in them, like women's chess club. It was literally discriminating against female candidates. In the end, Amazon had no choice but to scrap the whole thing. And this case just perfectly shows the huge gap between what they wanted to do and what actually happened. The goal? Totally noble. Find the best people and do it efficiently. The reality? The system was biased and completely unfair. It's such a powerful reminder that you can't just build these things and then, walk away. You have to be actively managing the risks every step of the way.
Okay, so if we know these risks are out there, what in the world are we doing about it? Well, that question takes us right into what you could call an ethical minefield. And to get through it, we need a map. We need to learn the language, the core concepts that everyone is using to talk about AI safety.
Right at the heart of all this is a big idea: AI governance. Now, what is that? It's basically a set of rules, standards, and processes to make sure we're building and using AI responsibly. The best way to think about it, honestly, is like guardrails on a highway. They're there to keep this powerful technology on a safe and ethical road, so we get all the good stuff while trying to avoid the bad.
So what are these guardrails actually protecting us from? Well, the risks kind of fall into four big buckets. First, you've got bias, like we just saw with the Amazon example. Then there's privacy and copyright infringement, where private or copyrighted stuff accidentally ends up in the AI's answers. Third is a huge one, a lack of transparency. And finally, there's something called model deterioration, which is the weird fact that these models can actually get worse over time if you don't look after them.
Yeah, that transparency issue, that one's worth digging into a bit more. It's often called the black box problem. And here's the really weird paradox. Some of the most powerful, most accurate AI models are also the hardest to explain. Like, even the people who built them can't always tell you exactly why it made a certain decision. And think about that for a second. If you can't explain a decision, how can you possibly trust it? How do you fix it when it messes up? It's a huge, huge problem for accountability.
Okay, so with all these challenges on the table, you're probably thinking, how is the industry actually dealing with this? So let's switch gears and look at the playbook. Let's see how the biggest names in tech are trying to build those guardrails from the inside out. When you look across the industry, you start to see these common themes pop up. You've got IBM, and they're focused on their 5 pillars of trust. Things like explainability and fairness. Then you've got Microsoft, and they're really pushing ideas like having a human in the loop and always monitoring the system. And Google's principles? They start with this big one. AI has to be socially beneficial. So yeah, the words are a little different, but the core goals are pretty much the same: safety, fairness, and accountability. Everyone's aiming for that. But listen, it's not just about companies policing themselves. That's not the whole story. Governments and international groups are now stepping in big time. You've got major frameworks like the EU AI Act and the NIST Risk Management Framework in the US. These are creating official rules of the road. And here's the key part. These regulations have teeth. We're talking serious financial penalties for companies that don't comply, which, really raises the stakes for everyone to get this right.
Okay, so we've talked about what the big companies and governments are doing. But here's the thing. This isn't just their problem to solve. Not at all. We, as the people who actually use this stuff, have a super important role to play in where this technology goes. So let's bring it home. Let's make this personal and talk about what you can do.
Remember those crazy hallucinations we started with? Well, let's circle back to that, because there are real practical things you can do to cut down on them. First off, be super specific with your prompts. Don't just ask a vague question. The more detail you give, the better your answer will be. Second, play around with the settings. A lot of tools have a temperature setting. If you lower that, it makes the AI less random and more factual. And third, try what's called multi-shot prompting. That just means you give it a couple of examples of the kind of answer you're looking for to get it on the right track.
But at the end of the day, the single most important tool you have is your own brain, your own critical thinking. Look, AI is an amazing assistant, but it is not an oracle. It doesn't know the truth. You have to treat everything it gives you with a healthy dose of skepticism. Always, always validate. Always fact-check. Never just blindly trust what it spits out. That is our #1 defense against the spread of misinformation.
So, as we start to wrap this up, you can see a clear picture starting to form, right? We've looked at the very real dangers, from hidden biases to just plain making stuff up. We've explored the guardrails of governance that are being built to keep things safe. And we've seen the playbook that everyone from big tech companies to governments to, us, can use to steer this thing in the right direction.
Really, when you boil it all down, it comes back to this one simple but really powerful idea. AI is all of our responsibility. This isn't some technical problem for a handful of engineers in Silicon Valley to solve. No way. This is a societal challenge, and it belongs to every single one of us. The goal here is to make sure the AI we're creating is safe, secure, and built by humans, with humans in mind.
And that leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. AI is basically a reflection of its creators. It's trained on our data, our writing, our entire history. So if it's a mirror, how do we make sure it reflects the best of us? Not our biases, not our flaws, but our hopes, our creativity, and the very best of who we are and what we want to be.